Yeah.
Yeah. So we hit record, huh?
I accidentally hit it before, so I'm just gonna
just
we'll
let
just
it go.
Start it off. Yeah, just let it go.
Okay.
Right? I mean,
okay,
whatever.
Cool. I like it.
So Victoria, welcome, and this is kind of how it goes, right?
Yeah, it's pretty much rambling.
We kind of just we just sort of ramble here. That's all we do. Actually.
I love it.
No.
Awesome. I mean, we've already had this has been the most interesting conversation I've had all week already in the first 5 seconds. So yeah. I'm here for it.
No, that's fine. Yeah, yeah. So I was telling Tom, and it's always fun to tell Tom when I meet somebody who we want to have on the show because. We don't always get to interact with the same people at the same time. Sure. And so with you, we had a pretty instantaneously cool conversation when you and I spoke, and I was like, this woman has got to be in this conversation because so much of what you do in your job, and we'll get through with the boring stuff first, because, we got to do that first. But so much of what you do and how you approach it, it was just instantly resonated with everything Tom and I have ever talked about on the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how we came to know you, I guess, as
awesome.
It were, right? And so let's get the boring stuff out of the way. Who are you? What are you doing? And let's kind of lay the groundwork, because we got to get that out of the way.
Cool. Well, I'm Victoria. I'm turning my phone on Do Not Disturb because I'm getting a barrage of texts right now that are linked up to my computer and banging in my ears.
That's how it happens.
Yeah, it's always that, and it's like, okay, yeah. So, anyways, I'm Victoria Dorsano. But yeah, so Matt, what you were referencing back to, like a little bit of what I do. I am a health coach for, busy professionals, busy people, entrepreneurs, business owners. You guys can relate, right? Just managing a lot of things, a lot of balls in the air. And we want to make sure that what we're doing is the most effective. And we're not like kind of just tiptoeing around the solutions and kind of majoring in the minors, as I like to call it. I think a lot of people get caught up in the minutia, which can be great for if you are at that stage and you're optimizing performance and really trying to get a certain degree out of energy or whatever you might be after out of your body. But most people need to start at a very basic level and kind of canceling out some of the noise of the nonsense out there of, Kim Kardashian's laxative lollipops that she's selling and, all the craziness out there, and really trying to figure out what are the basics we need to start with? How can we hone it in those? And maybe we can get to some of these fancy things later on if that's really where you want to go. But from talking to you, Matt, and it sounds like you as well, Tom, if you guys, are having conversations, you guys probably are more into a lot of those optimizing performance side of things too, it sounds like.
We've had whole shows on really minutia, like minutia of minutia. We've had entire dialogues on really very narrowly defined stuff.
There are some things out there that can work, and then there's a lot out there in the minutia that's just like, no, it's not there yet, guys. And why are we promoting it to the mainstream?
100%.
And so for sure.
Yeah, and actually, that's one of the things I wanted to talk to you about today. So we'll put a pin in that and come back to it. But yeah, like there is this balance, right? Because like in what you do, for a living, and look, like candidly, Tom and I use this as as an excuse to have this conversation every week. Like that's kind of like our motivation for this. We're not selling a product. We're not health coaches like yourself.
We would totally take sponsorships though if they offered them to.
Right? Yeah, and so he'll come back. Yeah. So, but it is a delicate balance, right? Like it's a delicate balance between what you have to do to make money and what you have to do to be responsible for, the outcome of everybody that is listening to you. Right. And look, I've looked at your YouTube channel, you got people watching you, and like, those people are to some degree or another looking to you for, some free advice. And if you're putting links to the, what did you have that incline stepper thingy, right? Like,
Oh yeah.
I know you had ACL surgery, so that's probably super. Yeah. The slant block. Thank you. Which, by the way, I love. I actually, part of my new thing here is a gym downstairs. So I'm actually looking for gym sort of equipment that's like small footprint. So I was very excited about that. But like, that's something that you personally probably got a lot of value out of with the ACL surgery and stuff. And like, you can pass that on, but it's an affiliate link, I assume, right? Like, and so it's fine when it's like your thing. But like when you get into, and Tom and I have lambasted the Ben Greenfields and Joe Rogans of the world on this show more times than I can count, because I don't think they use that shit anymore. Like it's just basically like a fucking ad circle, like, you know, and it's like, come on.
100%.
We actually did the math.
Or they have a 28-hour daily self-care routine.
Yeah, right. I was just gonna say that. We like did some back of the envelope math, and it was like, yeah, my daily, I use this shit every day
for an hour.
Yeah.
Oh my God, like,
sure.
Right.
And I do a sauna session for an hour.
And then I plunge into a cold pool and I stand there and I invite Wim Hof over and he comes and sits with me for 2 hours in the cold pool. It's wild. I totally get that. And those intros are now like 15 minutes long.
37 hours in it. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. And like, and it's like, come on, man. I mean, like, at least be honest. Hey, I'm trying to sell this because I want to feed my kids. And like, in order to do that, you need to buy this $12,000 cold plunge. Like, that's it.
Yes.
You know, like, I mean, I'd respect you more if you just came out and said it. I mean, I know what it is, so I don't need to be told, but at the same time, I get irrationally pissed off when I'm like, oh, fuck you and your stupid affiliate link. Like, you know, like, it's just, it gets a bit much, you know?
It's hard. And you know, what's funny is as I've been growing on YouTube too. Sorry, I think I have a little bit of a delay. So if I talk over you guys at any point, it might be because of that.
Don't worry about it. Yeah,
that's all right. It'll fix itself.
It fixes itself in final. Actually, that's what I love about this thing. Yeah,
awesome. So no, I was just gonna say, you know, as the channel's been growing, I'm still a small channel by any means. It's you know, it's 4,000 something subscribers, so not that much. But I've been getting more and more emails from these different companies, like, hey, we'll send you this. Can you do a full video review, or can we do an affiliate program with you? And some of the products, like, I have to be really wary, and I'm very big on like, okay, let me try the thing first. Like, send it to me. I'll try it. I'll use it. I'll research it. If I like it, I'll let you know in a month. If I don't, that's a loss of your product on your end. But I'm not going to review something or share something that I personally haven't used and don't know if it works or not, because that's my reputation. And you know, it's just there's a lot of people that do that because it's good money. And would it be great to have a bunch of sponsors on my channel? Awesome. Probably same with you guys, but at what cost, right? And I don't want to be the person where it muddies the water like that and it gets it's just yucky. So yeah, all the stuff that I promote, it's stuff that I've used actively in my life and have seen a difference, and I'd say for the most part has a deal of evidence behind it, behind the efficacy of why it works, how it works, all that stuff. But it can be really easy to just I don't know, start talking about athletic greens.
Yeah. And that's the thing, man. Like, you know, I remember back in the day, the Ben Greenfield things was like, hey, I deconstructed this refrigerator and I put this other thing over here and I'm running water through it and I made my own homemade structured water filter. And you're like, dude, that's kind of cool, because it's like, you know, we can make fun of people who talk about structured water some other day, but or today if that's where it goes. But I mean, but you know, the people that seem really into it are very into it, and so that's cool. And like, he went and made it, like, you know, something with the refrigerator coils, did the thing he needed it to do, and blah blah blah. I was like, this is pretty ingenious. But then some company comes along and said, well, wait a minute, if somebody like this is going to build this thing out of a refrigerator, why don't I just make one and we'll put a fancy label on it, and then Ben Greenfield will hawk it, and it's like a $30,000 or whatever it was, I can't remember what it was, and you're like, wow, so not only do I need 28 hours in a day, but I also need 6 figures of disposable income just so I could actually wake up in the morning, because otherwise I'm going to die.
Yeah. Matt, did I say this last week where I took a swing? Did I take a swing at Dave Asprey last week going like, he's 2 years older than me, man.
Oh,
why
he
does
looks
he look
like absolute shit.
Yeah.
And I was like sitting there going, you don't look good. Like, you know, you know, I see that at Ironman all the time. Like, you go there, you're tired, and like, I don't know, it's like they're drawn. It's almost like your Skeletor, you know what I mean? It's like kind of sucking into your. I see this at Ironman all the time. Like, you go there, these are supposed to be like in shape, top of the field people, right? Like, they're doing 13 hours of exercise straight without even batting an eye, and like, they look like shit. They're leathered. They're like, you know, their skin looks like shit. They're drawn out. They're skinny looking, like bad skinny, like, you know what I mean? Not good skinny, right? You know?
No, I get
you know,
that.
there's that. And like, I don't know, man, you know, maybe when I was younger and I was thin, it was different because you had a lot more collagen in your skin, and like, you just, you know, didn't look as. I'm 47 now, about to be 47 actually in a week or two. And so, Like at 47, I got a lot less squishiness up here than I used to. So the only way to keep it youthful is to have a couple extra pounds on you, right? Like, I mean, you don't want to be like,
Gaunt.
you know, I like, this is a 10 pounds I kind of dig right now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't 10 pounds less, and I'm like, you know, it just doesn't look great. You know, it's not a good look, you know?
Well, and that becomes a little bit of the
But I don't
difference
know.
between
Yeah, I don't know. These things are crazy.
yeah, I was gonna say that becomes the difference of a little bit of that like longevity versus and like healthful, well-rounded living and optimizing your performance. Like a lot of those Ironman triathletes and those endurance triathletes to compete at that level, you know, for that speed that they're going after, like having the least amount of body fat necessary can be helpful. But it comes at a cost of aesthetics, but also, you know, down the line potentially longevity because you need fat to survive. Your brain needs fat. Like we
Yeah,
need
yeah.
that in our bodies.
Yeah, my 15-year-old son comes in the other day, and he's like just completely trimmed out. Like this kid's 15 and doing like a crazy amount of exercise. And he comes in and he goes, and he holds the lower part of his stomach, like just like right below your belly button and above your waistline, right? What every dude above 35 actually can grab usually with like 4 fingers, right? Like that's not, he's got like, you could kind of maybe pinch a little bit if you tried real hard. He's like, I got to get rid of this. I'm like, no, dude, no.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
wait, where are you absorbing that information from? Because we gotta stop that. That's crazy town. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's like you know, he looks great because he's 15. But like you know what I mean? Like I feel like if he did this level of activity when he was 45, he would not look great. You know, I don't know.
Well, and his joints probably
I'm trying to strike a balance too. No. Yeah. No, absolutely not. So I love, I want to take a little bit go back to your thing real quick and then a left turn, right? I like some of your videos, like the PFAS one. We're going to definitely chat about in a minute because I've lost my mind thinking about that one. I went on a really deep dive on this one. But here's the thing, when you're working with a person who just wants to lose 10 pounds, 20 pounds, whatever, and they're a busy professional and everybody that you kind of like lined up in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, what's your balance between talking about that kind of crazy obsessive stuff versus like, all right, here's how you just lose 5 more pounds, right? Like in a safe and responsible way. Like where's your line?
Yeah, and it totally depends on the person, really. Like that their mentality, I mean, some of the people I work with are just very high octane, high fueled entrepreneurs. They want to lose the 10 pounds. Not only that, they want to keep it off and they want to optimize the performance and they want to be able to open 3 more businesses. That's when we'll start with some of the basics, but I'll keep in mind, like, okay, in their chart, like we are going to revisit some of these other things that can really help kind of level up how they're feeling on a day-to-day basis and figure out what's going to work best for them and not counteract some of the stuff that we've already worked on, some of the foundations we've already worked on. For most people, though, it is really overwhelming because we've all have access to the internet, right? And we've already been marketed to by millions of companies, by all the podcasts, all the Ben Greenfields and Joe Rogans. So there's just all this noise and it gets really stressful for them. So a lot of times it's just peeling back and figuring out what are those 2 to 3 things we could just focus on and hold it there and say, hey, here's how you can kind of delineate and provide some education to them around like what you should pay attention to down the line when you are fed these marketing messages and what you can just for you and your personal goals, what you can just totally ignore for right now. And that's kind of how I go about it. Cause I'd say 75% of the folks they just don't need to dabble into that stuff. Or if they do, I'd at least try to provide them some education as to how to sense out a good source of information, make sure that there's some evidence behind it, figure out where to look, what a systematic review is, what a randomized control trial is, all those things, so that they can become
so some
a good
baseline
evaluating
information
source.
on how to.
Yeah.
You know, it's pretty funny because you know you're clearly marketing and working with these high level people, and they tend to run in the same circles.
Yeah.
And, you know, they all want to do the next big thing. And God forbid I hear Matt's doing something I'm not doing. right?
We have drawers
and
full of shit here.
It
by the
is
way,
like literally, the camera only goes so low because
Yeah.
you don't see the pile of shit on the
Yeah.
floor behind me.
Literally
And
within
it's-
reach of my hand, I've got a intranasal red light therapy.
I don't even
human
want to tell you what kind of injectables I have under the camera right here.
It's like that's just what I could grab in my immediate vicinity.
That network, you hear somebody's using something, and immediately, like, you don't care because that other person did something that was impressive to you.
Oh,
Yeah.
you don't
I
even.
want to do that too.
I didn't even tell you. I talked to our friend Brian yesterday, and he's got this chair that is like fucking absolutely ridiculous.
I'm now very close with the person who built that chair for him, so we'll go back there soon, man. He's getting prototype 3.
He's shipping out the first production models now. So
what do
Victoria,
these chairs do?
dig this. Sorry. So
everything.
This chair is, first of all, he bought an Airstream to put it in the back as a demo. That's how high end this thing. The chair sells for $144,000.
Okay.
Right. And so what it is there are I don't want to get this wrong, but I don't have a way of fact checking this. But I think Tom, he said there's 1,400, not counting screws. There are 1,400 parts on this chair. Like that, and that's not counting like fasteners and like such, right?
And it is so ridiculous compared to what he dropped off in my office.
Oh yeah. So Tom and I have been using this frame. Tom and I have been using this since the prototype version when it was like, it looked like a tanning bed. But now what it is you sit, you get naked, right? You're totally naked in a room. And you walk up to this machine and you put your hands on this orb. Right. And the orb measures your own pulsed electromagnetic frequency in your body at that point in time. Right. So it knows this going into that. Right.
Uh-huh.
Then you lay down in this bed and it's this like poured resin.
It's zero gravity.
Resin. Yeah. It's a poured resin clear table that's at the same angle they launch astronauts into space in. Like this chair is researched down to the bolts. Like it's like, it's crazy. And then you sit in this chair, and integrated into the chair is a whole system of PEMF. So
actually, he's not using pulsed anymore. He's using full waves.
Oh, is he?
It's constant. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so and this thing's changed 50 times, by the way. I mean, it's
yeah. The old one was a red light panel on a wooden box.
It was
with
4 Juve panels.
A horse coil.
Yeah, it was 4 Juve
PEMF
panels
on it. Yeah.
Have you ever seen this thing? It's called MagnaWave, and it's an equine PEMF machine for equine.
No.
Yeah, so it's instead of a little loop, it's a big loop.
And you would Brian used to wrap this loop around his body.
Put it around you, yeah.
And you just sit there and you just convulse like this,
yeah.
like as the pulses happen. And then it gets like, you get to a point where I fell asleep pulsing, and I had a rotator cuff problem. And to the credit of this thing, I had a rotator cuff problem for years from a rock climbing thing that I had. And I couldn't put my arm above my shoulder. I couldn't lift my elbow above my shoulder. I did, oh God, what am I thinking of? Exercises.
Physical therapy.
Yeah. Physical therapy. Thank you. Jesus, I totally blanked on that. I
That's
did PT for it for years. I did internet deep dive. I mean, everything we talked about on this show, I did the same level of research on trying to figure out how to fix this damn thing, and nothing would work. I'm like, well, I guess I'm just fucked. I just live with this. We were at Brian or Tom's shop one day. Brian dropped this chair off. We're all playing with it. They go outside. He's like, you want to use it? I'm like, yeah, I'm all in. Like, get there, close the door, strip down, lay down, fucking fall asleep for like a half hour. I just like literally, even though I'm like convulsing on this table, and I woke up, I'm like, that was super relaxing. Yeah. And I get up and I go to grab my shit off the hook. I'm like, oh shit, what? And I'm like sitting here like, and Tom, how many years ago? That was like, had to be 3 or 4 years ago at this point, right?
At least, yeah. I mean, that was pre-COVID.
Yeah, it was pre-COVID. So yeah, and I got up and it was great. So now this chair is like the evolved version of that. But you have molecularized hydrogen in your nose. You've got
he's got
vibroacoustic
haptic speakers embedded in the chair itself. So there's a guided meditation.
Yeah.
And then you have it's not binaural beats if it's not headphones, but I think it's isochronic tones or something. Like he had a sound engineer
Yeah, the
build
guy
whole-
lives in. He's an energy worker who lives in a pyramid in Tibet, kind of thing. Like literally, and I'm not. That's not like being funny. Like I think
Is it Tibet or Bali or something?
Yeah, the guy lives in a
Something- Yeah,
pyramid because it's an optimal energy structure. Yeah, like
Sure.
yeah, it's like it's super fascinating. But that's the same guy who recorded it all, and I agree with you, Tom. I think it could be binaural only because the chair comes down on your face. It senses how far you
so
are.
maybe you have both signals in both ears.
You've got enough separation between left and right that's right next to your face. Like it's, I mean, it's a crazy, but you could.
There's like 6 or 7 technologies in it working on.
And it's a 28-minute cycle. Last I checked.
Okay.
I don't know if that's
what I was
changed,
going to
but you
ask.
cram.
What's the
so
minimal
weird.
effective dose?
How the hell did he get to 28? So,
dude, don't
so
ask
in Chinese
Brian,
medicine,
never ask
they say,
Brian that question
I know
because
I
it'll
won't
be a
able to keep up
4-hour
with
question answer. Yeah.
But so they say that, in Chinese medicine, they say the energy cycles through the channels 50 times a day. How? I don't know.
Sure.
But if you break that down, that's like 28.6 minutes.
So in 28 minutes, I did not know that, by the way.
So weird.
So in 28 minutes, he crams in vibroacoustic therapy, red light therapy, PMF, or now just, I guess, electromagnetic EMF
full
therapy,
wave or
right?
whatever. Yeah.
Molecularized hydrogen, and what am I missing? Well,
you said red light.
I said red light. Yeah. But the
guided meditation.
The guided meditation. Oh, and the guided meditation. So basically, in 28 minutes, you got like 6 stacked like modalities, like all in a sandwich. And he's looking at they got a good plan. I mean, it's expensive, so you sell it to a bunch of rich guys first, and they get the first wave. And then in a year from now, when the chair is better, they return it. They bring it back, they upgrade it because everything's completely upgradable, and then it becomes the basis for their fleet rental program for studios like Tom's and everybody like that who can put a chair in there and kind of offer it as a service, which it's super cool. But like, yeah, I mean, you like, I was laughing. Don't ask Brian these questions because it's literally like a 2-hour answer that you understand like 1% of. Like, and,
well, you gotta wonder.
Normally goes
smart guy. Like I like to
raising
think so anyway.
people's consciousness levels too. At some point, it goes from like, here's a very physical thing to like, all right, now we're gonna get them to see God.
No,
it's like, all right, dude, like.
No, I
just want my foot to stop hurting.
Yeah, I was ayahuasca. You'll have some ayahuasca before going in the chair.
Exactly.
Just a nice little like, DMT trip.
Yeah,
I could totally see like at least a microdose.
Yeah,
I'm so
at a minimum, you should put a couple drops of micro drops.
With all the stacks of those therapies, like back to back to back, like how much is the body actually able to like maximize the benefit from each one of those therapies in that duration of time? Would you say that more is always better when you're combining those things, like, or are all those therapies studied to work in a stacked way synergistically where one can enhance the other, because sometimes, wouldn't you imagine the body's probably like, what's going on? We got magnets over here. we got something going on with the brain. Like, because you're not really present or intaking to like each individual therapy. You're trying to you're there as an experience to all of them. So I'm just curious how much the body can actually really receive the maximum benefit from each of those. Can you toggle certain ones off and on to like really isolate them? Or
yeah, I mean that's totally customizable. That's a funny question you brought up there, because our office does, I mean, we sell individual stacks of different services.
And Tom's writing a book on stacking, by the way, as well.
Yeah, that'll
Tom's
be
a
out
big stack fan.
Yeah, no, but I get the point, right? Because it's hard enough to find good research on a lot of these therapies, even red light therapy, right? It's 40 plus years of research, but to say exactly how and why, it starts to get a little dicey, right? So you listen to like Juve and you're like, oh my God, this thing will make me live forever. And it's like, nah, but it'll help.
Right.
Yeah. No, there are definite benefits, but you're kind of overselling it. And how much can your body take, and how does it know how to do that? I mean, one of the things we do, one of the things that I enjoy so much about the Juve or the red light, because we have other panels now that are the exact same thing, is being able to combine that because of its hit for production of ATP in the mitochondria with oxygen therapy, right? So if I increase the amount of serum oxygen, theoretically, I now have that oxygen going to those cells, which the mitochondria needs to make the ATP to then get stimulated by the red light So now it's got all the building blocks and it's got the physical, power to do it. So in my head, it works really well. But if you said sit down and tell me exactly why this is happening, I'm pulling research from two different methods. I'm not saying what the combination is.
Sure.
Yeah.
Like I made a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And I don't know how much better that is than just eating peanut butter on a piece of bread and jelly on a piece of bread. It's hard to quantify that.
And it gets even more complicated in my book, because if you look at them in isolate, right, you say, okay, so molecularized hydrogen, like that provides all kinds of organ level awesomeness to your body, right? Like autophagy and a bunch of other cool shit like that just makes your body work better at that cellular level. It has nothing to do with anything else, right? Like if I just breathe that in every day, I get whatever benefits I do from that. When you look at the PMF, that's like literally separating and creating that more space in between those cells. And especially and I was explained after the fact why my rotator cuff happened. He basically said, with such a massive jolt of PMF, you basically created pathways that were previously blocked off, either by inflammation or acute injury, or which is probably the same thing actually. And you couldn't actually have your body do what it should do to solve that. And it took blasting your body with PMF waves to literally pull your stuff apart, right? Mm-hmm. And give flow for that. And so I'm like, all right, so here, let's just take those two things and say, okay, if on the face of this sounds reasonable. Now, to Tom's point, we don't know if it is or not, but if you say, okay, if I have PMF opening me up at a cellular level, and then I have hydrogen sliding its way through and doing what it does with more surface area to do it, for lack of a better way to describe it, isn't that got to be better, right? And then you say, and you can kind of like follow the bouncing ball, right? And now you've got, and meditation. By the way, Tom and I have both done this chair several times, including the latest version. And from my dollar entry fee kind of thing, like I was like, look, the meditation kept me out of thinking about this too hard. The red light was super relaxing. The hydrogen is just like a thing in your nose. So I didn't even notice that. And it's odorless and, so whatever. And there's a really cool chant kind of thing going on. And like, it's vibrating your thing. You're like, this is great. And you got out and I was like, I was just buzzing with energy for like two days.
Yeah.
Like,
it's kind of crazy. Yeah. And to be fair, I did not get to use the little ball thing that came after.
Yeah. I did not use
I was still working with it when they had some grounding issues and they're like, don't touch any of the screws.
Yeah.
You
and
might
I
get
touched
shocked.
it too.
And I'm like, I'm touching every fucking screw now, dude.
Yeah.
Like, why? Because you said not to.
Yeah. I got zapped too on something when I did it. I was
he's like, how bad was it? I'm like, I don't know. I kept doing it.
Yeah. So. But that's also the danger. Like we know this guy, and I know the Herculean amount of effort that has gone into researching this thing, and it's like really legit and in very earnest. But like, I don't know, I can't speak to that for everybody, right?
So yeah, and full disclosure, there was a time when me, Matt, and Brian were very stoned in the back of a Tesla coming back from Virginia.
Yeah, having
a discussion that like both me and Matt are like, dude, I can't keep up with it.
No. Well, I just went to breakfast with him and another guy who's in the same realm, and we started talking about soul families and how we
monads.
And he basically said, well, who was it? Somebody said something about, hey, have we met before? He goes, well, if I didn't know, and the guy's response was, if I didn't know you then, how would I know you now? And the guy who he said that to was like, what the fuck are you talking about? And he's like, yeah. And essentially, that phrase I've actually used a bunch of times since that, because I was like, that is so fucking right on. Like that phrase, Tom, I know you glitched out there, but like
it's killing me, man.
If I didn't know you then, how would I know
Zen
you
Cohen.
Now? Yeah.
The second I died, I'm like, I know what he's saying.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. No, totally. But like that's the thing. You end up going to breakfast and talking about like a health thing, and all of a sudden 5 minutes later you're talking about soul families and the spanning the distance of the universe in a moment's notice. I'm like, so I'm all in on this, but not at all what we came here to talk about, but okay, cool.
Absolutely not.
So you get done
So
with an hour and a half
fascinating.
breakfast. You're like, so should we just schedule our next one now? Because we didn't actually get to what we needed to talk about today. So,
He's probably like, it was what was meant to
I don't
happen.
even know how we got down this. Right. I don't know how we got down this rabbit hole outside of talking about affiliate links and stuff. But like,
Yeah, I mean, we jumped right into the red light share.
This is the kind of stuff that, like, you know, from Tom and I's point of view, like when we talk to people, are like, you know, there is a lot of great stuff out there. This chair is one of a million things we could talk about. Don't get Tom started on the God helmet. He'll talk to you about that all day. Like he still wants to build one. I don't know if he has or
no.
not.
I'm gonna buy one. The dude, the one of his students and the author of a couple of books that are like, they're mind blowing. I actually have an uncle who's a pediatric neurologist. And I got to talking to him, and we were talking about, hey, look, there's this guy. He's doing research on what he's calling neurotheology, and he's studying out-of-body experiences, near-death experiences as brain activity and structural changes in the brain. And then they start talking about Lewis Carroll and Alice in Wonderland. And I'm talking to my uncle, and I'm like, yeah, so he had these temporal lobe epilepsies episodes, and some of the things that happen are you have the walking down or falling down the dark tunnel experience, which Alice experienced it. You know, you have illusions of your body getting smaller and bigger. Alice in Wonderland experienced it.
Oh.
And my uncle goes, yeah, that could all be temporal lobe epilepsy. He's absolutely right. Or it could have been the massive amount of cocaine that Lewis Carroll was taking on a daily basis. And I'm like, yeah, I guess both will get you there.
Yeah.
It's like, but it's very interesting to think that if we think of these spiritual experiences, because they're real to us, right? We had the experience, but they're not external. So could it be a matter of being able to stimulate brain tissue in a certain way? And the God helmet was named that not by the researcher that invented it, by one of the it was one of the reporters that was studying what he was, or reporting on what he was doing, where about 20 people in a larger study claimed to hear the voice of God. More often than not, they were having like alien abduction experiences, right. or they were having these ecstatic states.
Right.
And this guy, Todd Murphy, made a version 2 of that, which doesn't require an actual helmet, but a soft thing, and you can set it to stimulate different parts of your brain to experience different altered states, which is super intriguing to me.
What was that one that I bought a few years ago that you put it on and you could actually change the configuration of it? I can't remember. It didn't end up working for me. Or
was that neuro Apollo? No, there was like
there's another one.
It had to light up the nose, and it had a bunch of different. Is that the one you're talking about?
Right.
Yeah, that one seems to come up a lot. That's still around. That's still pretty popular.
So I guess all of this, Victoria, like we in the world that you play in, right? Like you got some like biocharged lunatic entrepreneur who just like wants to optimize the shit out of everything, right?
I looked at one of those biochargers too.
Yeah. The human charger.
Plug them in.
Biocharger NG or something. Biocharger like that. NG, it's about 10K, and I was like, yeah, you know, can you give me a couple more like studies?
Right.
I was like, I want to buy into this, man.
Yeah.
I want in.
I desperately want to make this happen.
That was an electromagnetic field that it would generate, and it had these different colored tubes in it, a Tesla coil on top.
Yeah, it looks fancy, don't they? Yeah,
it looks like, and you just sit near it.
Right. So, like, when you go down this rabbit hole with your clients, Victoria, like you get you know, Tom and I are your clients, right? We're like, hey, there's this God helmet thing. We want to go all in on it. Like, how do you approach that? Because there's a lot of weird shit out there, and like, not all of it's good. Most of it's probably not. So,
there absolutely is. I usually start by asking questions. I mean, if you guys are hard pressed on doing something, you're going to do it whether I say yay or nay anyways, right? Like that's just,
for sure.
Especially hard pressed entrepreneurs, you guys are going to go do it. But if they're asking my opinion or whatever it might be, I usually start with like, who did you hear it from? Who made it? What are their financial incentives or not? You know, what is the tie-in, especially if it's mentioned from like a podcast or a Joe Rogan thing or something like that. And, you know, what have you heard about it so far? Like, tell me about it. Because a lot of these things, like what you guys are talking about, I haven't heard of a lot of these things. These are fascinating to me. I have a whole list that I've made so far of things I
Yeah.
need to learn more about.
Yeah.
Stuff.
Yeah.
So,
You're
and
going
then
to go
I will
down a dark
usually,
hole. Just,
I don't
I
even
mean,
think you got the weirdest, Victoria. Yeah, you haven't even heard the whole of it.
I did talk, actually, Victoria and I talked about the orgasmic meditation thing when we were on our last call. So I was like,
yes.
yeah, this is the kind of weird shit we talk about.
I think that was our opener.
That was our
wasn't
opener.
it?
Yeah. I
That was
like,
your
yeah.
opening. That was
I was
your
like,
opening
let's kick this
episode.
off the right way.
Amazing.
That was our
amazing.
opening
we were
episode.
like, what should we talk about? Well, sex sells.
Yeah. And it's also weird. Like, why would I rub a clitoris clockwise? What's wrong with counterclockwise? Like, I don't understand.
And
like,
only the upper left quadrant or something.
Yeah,
It was very like,
what?
I'm like, why
Like,
is
there's
this
no
so
personal
specific?
difference
Yeah.
there. It makes no sense.
yeah, and
Have you
not
guys-
only that, they
it was
come in
so
different
weird.
sizes. How big of a
Yeah, like how big of an area
Yeah, like,
should we be
it could
covering
be a
here?
very tiny little area
Yeah.
compared to a finger.
Yeah, and it's just like that's actually a good example. Like some of this stuff when you take a step back, you're like, this is so fucking stupid and preposterous that like, I don't know how anybody ever fell for it. Right.
Well, they wore a glove, so it's medical.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That makes all this, that makes all the difference.
It's totally
Yeah.
not sexual at all.
No, I'm wearing this glove. Yeah. It's like a condom for your finger, you see? Yeah. Yeah. But it's hard because like they had actually fMRI scans on that orgasmic thing. Like they really went whole hog to try to convince people. But then when you see
that's where they got in trouble going whole hog.
Yeah, exactly. When they peel that onion back, it's like I can get the same fMRI results from just meditating. Period.
Sure.
Without the orgasmic part. Like I can replicate this 100 other ways. I could take a long walk in a pine forest and probably get really fucking close to that fMRI scan, right? Like,
yeah,
I don't need to be rubbing. And it was all done very weirdly clinical, like on tables in front of, in an operating theater kind of thing. Like it was really weird, like just spooky shit all around. Just,
big money.
Yeah.
People were paying big money to do it. Yeah.
And then the Goops and everybody didn't even, or the Vanity Fairs, none of them backtracked after they all went under FBI investigation. So it's like, not only do you not have to care at the time, but you have no accountability to be like, hey guys, we covered the wrong thing. And the closest I've ever seen was that Joe Rogan, when he had Asprey on there, and then like totally lit him up when he found out that mycotoxins were bullshit.
Oh, about the coffee. Yeah.
The coffee thing. Like he went fucking crazy and like literally ripped him a new asshole. And I was like, see, this is the first and only time I've ever heard that happen.
And
like,
and you know, but part of it was financially motivated as well, because Joe Rogan has part of on it, right?
Right. So and
they have coffee too,
right?
You know, so it's like, am I going to get my $12? Now it's probably $20 bag from this guy or that guy.
Sure. Yeah. No,
it's really
right.
at the basis
and
of
I love your breakdown of that financial.
Yeah. And the basis of it is really like,
it has to be, because why would I stab another person if that's helping my career?
Right.
Unless I could get more out of it.
Right.
Yeah. But to get into your question, Matt, too, like you were saying with the orgasmic meditation, and you could just go out and walk outside. It's what I like to ask is like, what are you really after? What is the results that you are after and why? And if that's something that maybe is a little dicey of a new therapy that you're like, whatever it might be, like, let's see if there are other routes, because most often there's other routes to get to that same state or that same optimized outcome that they're looking for, that might be less of an investment, that might take less time, that might be more accessible, like walking outside, right? So there's things like that I will kind of bring up just to question and kind of create conversation around it. But at the end of the day, if somebody wants to just try a new gadget because they want to try a new gadget, go for it, you know, if that's something that they want to go do.
Yeah.
And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's just curiosity, right? And that's okay.
Yeah, sometimes it is curiosity. And I'll tell you what, like when Ben Greenfield told me you put red light on your testicles and it increases testosterone, I'm like, huh. So stand here naked and that looks weird. And like you do it and you're like, I must be filled with testosterone right now. And I'm like, so the placebo effect's amazing. Like love everything about the placebo effect. Let's just
you know,
dig in
but
on
we
that.
see that everywhere, right? No, even like the posturing, the Superman pose, right? Like that was supposed to raise your testosterone. You stand there, you frame out the door, it shows your dominance. They were never able to replicate that study.
Sure.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, is that real? Is it not? Well, we have one study that says yes, but everybody else that tried it didn't see it.
And I think my problem with over studying things, and Victoria, I do a lot of work in the cannabis space, and like, you know, I am a huge believer in cannabinoids and what they can do for you, and terpenes in particular. I'm fascinated with how that interacts with people's biology. And there's very little you can do by way of study because it doesn't meet scientific grade, you know, it doesn't cross those bars because it's grown, even if you take the same seed and the same soil with the same light and the same water, it's not the same. Like there is no standard, and it's physically impossible to do it. So like, you can't really do studies in a sort of traditional way, right? And like, I think a lot of this stuff kind of falls under that umbrella. So it gets even harder to be like, well, you know, Superman pose might not biologically prove a result in a predictable fashion, but from an epigenetic or from an anthropological standpoint, we can look at that person that's doing that posturing and framing and instantly have a different biological reaction to that person rather than if they walk in the room slumped over and, you know, like kind of like, you know, meek and whatever. I mean, so that's also important, you know what I mean? Like, and it has going to have nothing to do with studies, right? Like,
there's certain immeasurables, right? There's subjective
know.
experience, and that's just, you know, sometimes the placebo effect, our subjective experience to certain things, and there's those immeasurables like how somebody's disposition is changed by doing something. If somebody believes they're creating change and doing something good for themselves, it changes the way that they move about their world and interact with people around them. And that in itself can be very healthy because they could just be feeling stuck before in a rut. So just by way of doing something different can sometimes generate a healthier series of events that are set off by that one decision to just try something different, whether it actually does chemically change like a hormone response or not, right? So there is that, and I think that's important to consider too, because I think a lot of like evidence-based practitioners get too in that nitty-gritty, where we have to also acknowledge that we're people with emotions and subjective experiences. So that's part of it.
Yeah, Victoria, this is one of those things that, like, with evidence-based medicine, and when I went back to get my doctorate, that was a heavy part of it. So in Chinese medicine, it's one of the most researched fields. I mean, and when I say that, more than PTs, more than chiropractic, nurses out touch us as far as studies, but it's still, you know, it's still like voodoo to a lot of people. And on the other end, evidence-based medicine is not just that meta-analysis. It's not just the double-blind placebo-controlled. It's what is the practitioner's experience and what is the patient, client, whatever you want to substitute word there, what is their belief system and what is their interest, right? So playing down the placebo effect is dumb because, like, if that's going to work, then who cares?
I never play it down. I'm like a big believer. It's
turn
like
it up.
Yeah, turn that knob all the way up.
Whatever you can do.
Yeah.
You know, I had one guy that used to lecture in Chinese medicine, like, yeah, this all works, but the showmanship side adds a little extra to it. You know, so why would you not? You know, why do you think we play with fire in the treatment room? Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It looks cool.
Yeah.
All right, I'm in.
This must be working. There's a fireball in front of me.
This dude just put fire into me.
Well, when I did cupping with Tom, Victoria, he uses like flame to get the air out. And like, I've never had anybody do that before. And it's like, there is like a little bit of a thing in your brain. You're like, is this working better than the suction cup thingies that are just, everybody else?
And I would argue is some of it's more of the sensation. The other methods of putting the cups on are either not as strong or they're stronger, but they're more uncomfortable. So the fire cup is like kind of this perfect balance of that. Like, I can't take more oxygen out than I should. And the lip's wider so it doesn't cut into the skin. I used to do it. I bought some water buffalo horns. And they're thin, right? And that was a traditional method of cupping, right? Look, I have this sealed vessel that's
crazy. Seriously, that's amazing.
I'll send you a photo of me. I put them on the sides of my head. I scared one of my Christian friends.
Amazing.
That's really
she was like, Tom, I don't like that photo.
Yeah.
But you know, the problem is it's thin keratin. So one, I can't sterilize it, so I can't use it in clinic.
Right.
And two, the thin lip digs into you. So I mean, I've had friends that have taken really high end, like artsy photos with like champagne flutes on them, you know, as cups. And it looks beautiful, but it doesn't feel good. It's too thin.
Right.
Interesting. What are your thoughts
All
on,
right. Anyway, that was a super. I feel like we're just kind of all over the place.
a little bit, but
Go
that's
ahead.
okay. I want to ask you, Tom, though, about wet cupping because I don't know enough about it, but it is something
I
I
love
have.
wet cupping.
Do you? I thought it was such an interesting feeling. It's definitely different than dry cupping, but yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
couldn't tell like the after effects of it. I had it done on my calves, and it was just such a. I was like not expecting. I was like, oh yeah, no, there's a lot of coagulated blood. That's so fascinating to see.
Yeah, so that a lot of that, once again, the showmanship. You
Yeah.
mentioned, we talked about the showmanship. Your blood's going to clot
Sure.
regardless. Once it's out of the body, it's going to do that, right? So, a lot of times, and in China they do wet cupping. There's also the Muslim tradition, hijama, which I don't practice. I'm not Muslim. And any learning I've tried to do on it has been hard because, like, a lot of it will reference the Quran and things like that. So I have a practitioner at my office that is Muslim that has studied hijama and does that, and that's mostly wet.
Mm-hmm.
And certainly I've had Greek students be like, "Grandma used to cut me and then put cups on me," which I always find funny. But it is stronger. And from a Chinese medicine perspective, you wouldn't do it on just anyone. There has to be a localized blood stagnation that is not going to move with just regular cupping. So the idea is now, not only is it not enough for me to pull the blood to the surface, I got to take it out to make room.
Is that where the cutting comes in?
Yeah. And Chinese medicine will use, like today, we'll use like even like a auto lancet kind of thing that you get with diabetic needles, but traditionally we had a 3-edge needle, which looks like a little spear that you would prick the skin. And most people that are doing wet cupping will use either a scalpel or a razor blade and just quickly little slices. So it heals perfectly clean when it does heal. But that's the other thing. Part of the reason I didn't go into Western medicine is I like the stuff that's inside the body to stay there. And wet cupping is about as far as I'll take it. And if you do it very aggressively, a cup that may only be like 2 inches high could get maybe 3/4 of the way full. It's not much blood, but it looks like a fucking crime scene.
Right.
Yeah,
So why did you get it done, Victoria? What did you have? What were you trying to take care of?
Yeah, so I had a really weird calf injury. Super weird. So I don't know if you guys have ever had like a pretty significant like muscle or tendon rupture where you feel like that pop, right? It's like a big kind of slingshot. It felt like I got shot in the back of my leg. It was really forceful. I had to look and be like, who just shot me? It was like so bad. And I was like, I couldn't even put my foot to the ground or anything. And I was like, this has to be like, I had to have fully ruptured a calf muscle or soleus or something, or Achilles. I don't know. That was so strong and it was so painful. And I waited maybe a month and a half before getting the MRI because I was like, we'll see if it's really that bad. So on the MRI, it showed up as a grade 2 strain, so just like a partial rupture. But I really think it was more of the muscle torn because honestly, it's all wonky now. I have a huge divot in my calf. It's only at like 60% capacity.
Oh, no.
I know. So he was trying to kind of go, there looks like there's almost an area of fascia that's kind of restricting part of the calf right in the middle. So he was trying to put the cups around that line where there's like some potential scar tissue or some fascial adhesions that happened from the trauma of that tear. So yeah, that was the reasoning that practitioner tried to get into that area. So I don't know if it really did much.
Were you working out or something when that happened? Were you like doing a crazy workout or something when that happened?
So so I was on that power plate, so the whole body vibration platform. I was on it teaching. I subbed a few classes at the studio that had a bunch of them. I subbed, I think I taught 6 classes in a row, back to back that day, had very little water, because I was just going. So it was like a couple hours of me being on this vibration platform. And I think it just made my muscles kind of hypertonic in a way where I was just very tense. And I went to do like a knee driver kind of movement, stepping back off the plate and stepping back onto it quickly. And on that step back and transition, it just popped. And I was like, so bad. So yeah, I don't know if that would have happened with or without being on the plate all day long, but it was just such a strong...
But you could draw on to it.
Yeah. I'm assuming.
We were just talking about is stacking better or worse.
Yeah. Well, I mean, stacking, I mean, the poison's in the dosage, right? Like, so,
Yeah,
I
well,
mean,
that's with everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
so, if
I do think wet cupping is indicated in that condition, right? So we
Yeah.
have a partial tear. They would say this is severe blood stagnation. And you really want to get as much fresh blood to the area. So pulling it just into that interstitial space, that space between the skin and the fascia, is enough, but a bit more would be to take it out. You get an effect, and this is an interesting thing with cupping, up to 6 inches into the body, you see increases in circulation.
Wow.
So seriously, on a calf, that may not, you're probably hitting the bone of the shin or something.
Sure.
But you really get a lot of strong circulation.
Yeah, but when I had a
the
diaphragm
whole
issue
thing.
with Tom, he put the cups on my back, and I was
Yeah.
like, "What the fuck are you doing back there, bro? What's up here?"
Well, yeah, I mean,
were we
you
not
can't
clear
Yeah.
on that?
on the diaphragm specifically. That's an internal muscle, But you could also do along the on the hypochondriac area along the ribs too to get that. So you're just
Fascinating.
looking roughly where And I describe cupping more as like horseshoes and hand grenades, where acupuncture should be like laser pointed, computer guided kind of attack. Cupping is like, let's just blow up everything in this area. And that works good because you're getting a lot of, further circulation from a bigger area, right? So we get the metabolic waste, the cytokines, whatever the hell is in that tissue, to start moving, but you don't want it just to move locally. You want it to get absorbed back to the core of the body, to be processed, and that's what cupping can do very effectively. Acupuncture can too, but it's a different method of action.
Interesting.
So that's actually like I guess a good spot to kind of start bringing us home here. Like with your future of this, Victoria, do you sort of, I mean, watching and I know we didn't get into the PFAS thing, but you got me almost buying an $1,800 whole home water filter to get rid of the PFAS in my house. I have a whole home water filter now,
Awesome.
but
it's not an $1,800 one.
No, it's it's the one with it's the pleated fabric ones, right? It's not like the carbon ones that are.
You need the reverse osmosis one, man.
Yeah, like an RO filter would be
ROs
nice, but they're just water pressure is a thing for me. I don't know. I'm a fan of water pressure, and RO seems to be the.
Just put it on. Just put it on your drinking sources then.
Yeah. No, you don't need your toilet to be RO filtered, right? Which right now my whole house is like. I laugh. I'm like, well, you take a shower. They're like, hey, do you have a water filter here? I'm like, well, yeah, the toilet's filtered, the shower's filtered. You could get filtered water
drink right out of the toilet.
Just drink right out of the toilet, bro. Wherever you want. But but like that kind of stuff, like that kind of because that's a little nerdy of a dive, right? Like if we're being honest, it's not. It's relevant to everybody, but do you see sort of this being a thing for you to keep going in the future, and kind of just digging back these sort of quasi nerdy stuff and dip your toe in, because it does get people engaged for sure.
It's a passion of mine. I mean, I originally wanted to go into medicine. I studied bioinformatics and biostatistics. I really do love diving into research, and some of the things that I say that I find affect humanity at large, like PFAS in our water supply, or the quality of our air, that we have no choice but to take in water and to take in air. We have to do it in order to live, right? So I think those are the areas that I'm really passionate about getting nerdy about, because we have to be able to improve those things, at least, because we're constantly taking in water, constantly taking air, constantly taking in food. We might as well try to make sure that those sources are going to be, really the most. I don't like the word clean, because really nothing's clean. I mean, organisms are not clean. I have a thing with that, but you get what I'm saying. The best quality air, water, food that we can get. So that's kind of where I like to do the deep dive on some of those topics. Or if there's just something new I'm trying out too. If I'm going to try out something, I'm usually going to dive pretty deep into it, and I'm going to want to share about it. So that's the other thing.
Sure. Yeah, no, that's cool. And I think that honestly, I'm sure you see this in your world, but Tom and I definitely have seen it here, is that the world of health nerds is getting bigger, right? So what 5 years ago, Tom and I would have talked about as completely fringe. Now people have a cold plunge in their basement, right? This is not this stuff is coming out of the woodworks now. You know what I mean? So it's kind of encouraging, because like that means we're all getting a little better at this, I guess, for lack of a better term. But yeah, so I'm sure, I don't know. Have you seen that in your world? People getting more receptive to these kinds of things?
Yeah, I would say part of it has to do with the marketing, like it becoming more mainstream and just being more common to market to end user too. But I think there's an acknowledgement that at large we can fight for cleaner water, we can fight for cleaner air, we can fight for these things on a large government scale. But at the end of the day, the most impact that we can have is like really changing our own personal routines and figuring out and taking autonomy over our own bodies and our own health. And I think people are starting to understand that we can't rely on larger systems to do that for us all the time, and that we have to stand up and really look and seek for what's going to make the biggest impact for our health. Because I think people have been let down enough by larger structures and policies that just aren't in the best interest of human health. So I think that's a big factor into it too, is that people are starting to recognize the failure of certain policies and systems. And I'm not saying like there's never going to be a perfect government system or policies around health. It's just the way it is. It's a very complex thing, right? But I just think people are becoming more savvy and acknowledging that personal responsibility to really fix their own stuff at home.
Right. No, and that's super well said. I couldn't agree with you more. In fact, Tom and I have had 50 something conversations recorded about this exact topic. So I'm with you 100%. Yeah, totally. Well, so thank you so much for coming around today. I appreciate having you. Like I said, I knew you'd be fun to talk to. So I
love this conversation. You guys are awesome. And I'd love to, I have a lot to research here on the Scott helmet and that cool chair, and love to learn more. So yeah, great conversation, you guys.
Yeah. You're out in where? Chicago area?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So you're not close. I was going to say but he is always on a road show. If he does make his way out there to Chicago, I'll see if he would absolutely give you a test drive in this thing. It's like, and it's one of the most incredible things ever, but just cause it's so unique and that kind of unique thing is coming out more and more often. So we're just trying to familiarize ourselves with as many people doing stuff like that as possible. So he might not be the only person I could send you down.
Super cool. Super cool. Yeah. The better the technology gets these days, the more that stuff's going to come out. So it's cool to see.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. Cool. Well, listen, man, have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.
Awesome. Take care, guys.
Thank you so much,
Later,
Victoria.
Guys. Bye. Thank you.
Be subversive, irreverent.
Health is wealth, but you knew that.
Everybody knows that.
But so is following us on social media at Irreverent Health. And check out our website for more exclusive content at irreverenthealth.com.
Oh, I like this.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Irreverent Health.